Good morning, and thank you for joining me here today. We're gathered on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 7, the Blackfoot Confederacy and the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection to this land. My name is Shannon Phillips. I'm the finance critic for insurance and pensions, and I'm here today to resound the alarm bell in defense of our Canada Pension Plan and to ring the warning bell that Danielle Smith is not stopping with her plan to gamble with Albertans' retirement security. Now, since December, we have learned the following. Number one, Danielle Smith is not backing down and she is not stopping. In her year-end interviews, she told the public that we just need to hear more of her advertising. In other words, she's going to forge ahead and spend more of our money to sell us, all of us Albertans, on something we do not want. Second, we've learned very recently in the last few days that the Government of Ontario will not take on more cost or otherwise entertain Danielle Smith's scheme to dismantle the Canada Pension Plan. We've learned in a new poll in the last couple of days that support for Danielle Smith's pension gamble remains pathetically low, especially among UCP voters. And finally, we have also learned that there is now no doubt that Smith's gamble with our retirement will cost all Alberta taxpayers more than $500 million a year. So let me just elaborate a little bit on each of these new developments. First, in her year-end interview with Global, Danielle Smith said that she would continue to advertise to Albertans about the APP, continue to spend millions of our tax dollars on a scheme we don't want, and crucially, continue to lie to Albertans. Any individual Albertan or employer does not pay more than any other Canadian into the Canada Pension Plan. Sure, we have more actual individuals paying in now because we have a younger population, and often people retire elsewhere. The figures she put out in that interview were false, but she continued to use our money to sell us falsehoods. And interestingly, she made it clear she wants to exert her political influence on how our pensions are invested. Now, we know that Danielle Smith is unpredictable. And now we also know she wants to direct how our pensions are managed and take that away from the arm's length investment of the CPP, which has the best pension management track record in the world. Second, we learned recently about what the Conservative government of Doug Ford in Ontario really thinks behind closed doors about the UCP plan to gamble with our retirement. We know that publicly they have been quite critical. In private, it's worse. In a government briefing note that was obtained under Freedom of Information, Doug Ford's government called Smith's plan inflated and half the story. Their analysis showed what Albertans already know. The CPP is an agreement between all Canadians, not between Alberta and the federal government. It showed the risks of Alberta going it alone and highlighted what we know Albertans count on as the most important aspect of the CPP, its portability between provinces. Third, we just learned a couple of days ago that public support for Danielle Smith's plan to gamble with our retirement remains pathetically low. Barely 1 in 5 Albertans agree with her plan. We've had now 4 months of wasting money and effort and causing anxiety among the retirees, those planning for their retirement and employers, and the government is no further ahead. In fact, support for her plan to gamble with our retirement is falling among UCP supporters. So not only is this gambit a waste of money, it's also verging into political malpractice at this point. And finally, a couple of days ago, we learned from internal government documents that any Alberta pension plan would mean setting up a new provincial infrastructure. We learned from a federal briefing note that other provinces are not interested in allowing Alberta to use the Canada Pension Plan investment arm if we go it alone. That means that Albertans will have to have a new tax collection agency. It'll mean that we get to file our personal income tax twice, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun to a whole lot of people. And Finance Minister Travis Toews last year in budget estimates confirmed to me under questioning that an Alberta Tax Revenue Agency would cost a minimum of $500 million a year. It would involve hiring between 2,000 and 3,000 more public servants as tax collectors. No wonder Travis Toews didn't run again in May. He knew what this fool's errand would cost. And even he probably knew we should use $500 million for healthcare, for education, for other services, not for this. So all these developments mean we need to keep speaking up, speaking out, and showing up. Thousands of Albertans have already done so, but apparently we need more because the government is not listening yet. Over the next month, we're hosting a series of in-person town halls across the province. Tonight, you can join Calgary Edgemont MLA Julia Hayter and Calgary Foothills MLA Court Ellingson at 6:30 p.m. at the Dalhousie Community Centre up in the Northwest. And next week, we have town halls in Edmonton, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and High River. After that, there are more in Edmonton, Calgary, and Drumheller, and that's just for a start. The UCP cancelled their town halls on the topic of our retirement security. They don't want to hear from Albertans, but we do, and we will keep going, and we will keep working for Albertans' retirement security. Folks can visit albertasfuture.ca to register for any of our upcoming town halls and make sure that we send the message, hands off our CPP. Thank you, and I'll take any questions now.
Thank you, Shannon. We will now go into questions. Just a reminder for those joining us on the phone to use *9, and for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function to get into the question queue. We'll start with questions in the room.
Hi there, Nick with City News. Just talking about the town halls, can you give me a little bit of an idea of like the types of people that have been invited, how you guys have been reaching out to the community, and who do you kind of expect at the town halls?
Well, we've had a real cross-section because, of course, we hosted a number of them in Edmonton, Calgary, and St. Albert before Christmas. And what we found was and Red Deer, actually, and what we found was certainly older folks, retired folks, particularly if the town hall's during the day, they will often be overly represented, I would say, but especially when we have had situations where seniors groups have reached out to us and said, we're going to host a town hall, would you like to come? And that's what happened in St. Albert. The venue had to be moved twice because so many people wanted to come. And the UCP said they would come, and then they canceled. So but then we had another one in the Northeast in Calgary, and it was. There was a much larger cross section. It was in the evening. We've had a lot of small businesses up in the Calgary Northeast, reach out to us with their concerns about the kinds of business instability this would cause. We hosted a news conference at a small business in Northeast Calgary as well. And so I think there you saw a broader sort of demographic interest. It really depends on when the town hall is hosted. These ones are advertised through the local MLAs. And so I know there's been a great deal of community advertising and outreach into that quadrant of Calgary. And I fully anticipate another packed house, just as we will next week. I know in Lethbridge, there was even another organization that hosted a town hall. I think it was in October or November. And hundreds of people, and that's in my hometown of Lethbridge, showed up just on their own steam, of their own accord, because people are really worried about this.
And just a follow-up question. Hearing that, is there a concern, or maybe is there a message to maybe the younger generations out there? Because I kind of understand why the senior population is coming out, but that the younger generation who, hey, if you don't speak up now, that worst case this does affect you later down the road, what is that message to them to say, if there was ever an important time to get involved in this conversation, is now?
Well, what we're finding is certainly folks who own small businesses of any age are very concerned about this. And that's why organizations like the Payroll Institute and the Calgary Chamber of Commerce have spoken out against this kind of instability. And, of course, maybe more of the under 45 crowd. When I say older, I mean myself. I'm talking here about folks who are over 45 who are starting to do that retirement planning. And we see what we've paid into CPP, and we see that it's one of the legs of the stool of what our golden years are going to look like between our CPP, our OAS, and whatever our private savings are, and probably the equity in our homes, because that's what most people have. And so when I say older, I mean, in their 40s, because folks are starting to think about this at that age, and they look at what's being proposed by the government, And here's what they don't trust. They don't trust the portability promises by Danielle Smith. They don't trust that they'll be able to retire somewhere else or work somewhere else for a little while and then come to Alberta, go somewhere else, do the kinds of things that we know that folks in this province are highly mobile and want to do and have the right to do. And second, they're worried about political interference in their retirement security. And that kind of sort of unpredictability, capriciousness on the part of this Premier, messing around in what is hundreds of millions of dollars of our money that we paid in, and so did our employers over the course of our working lives, to guarantee us a benefit at the end of the day.
Any other questions in the room? Okay, we have one question on Zoom here. All right, Hiram, go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So this is an issue not related to pension, but to insurance. So there are two groups: Canadian Federation of Independent Business and the Insurance Bureau of Canada. They released a statement today calling on the province to do away with two tax levies. One is the 4% insurance premium tax, and a tax levy covering healthcare costs, saying it's a temporary tool to reduce prices for insurers, for consumers as the UCP government decides on long-term measures, while also saying the rate cap is putting a lot of strain on insurance. I was wondering if you can comment on that, whether you support what they're saying, or if you just have a comment on this issue.
Sure. I think what we've seen is a record from the UCP since 2019 of rolling back consumer protection, and as a result, our insurance costs going through the roof, whether that's on the home insurance side or the car insurance side, but in particular for auto. So what we need is a government that is committed to ensuring that we are protected as consumers at the same time as if something happens to us, that we can have the appropriate recourse. I haven't seen them actually act in the public interest in either of those ways since 2019. The insurance system, there's no question, does need an overhaul, but it needs an overhaul not in the interests of the highly profitable, some of those highly profitable corporations in the world, which is insurance companies. But it needs an overhaul in the interests of protecting Alberta consumers. I don't have any faith that the government will do this. These small measures, as proposed by the Insurance Bureau of Canada, I'm not surprised that they would like to distract us with small tax levies when the real problem is their exorbitant profits and the fact that our premiums have spiked. I'm absolutely not surprised that they want to have that conversation rather than the real conversation, which is protecting consumers. And it is for that reason that, frankly, I'm in agreement with Finance Minister Nate Horner from the UCP, who indicated last year that he was open to a conversation around public auto insurance. He shares that with the NDP because certainly we are just seeing people being hosed by insurance companies, and we need to restore the balance.
Thank you so much.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you.
All right, and any other questions on Zoom? Okay. All right, Stephen?
I'm just wondering, how you guys might think that the political perception of Alberta by other Canadians might be affected, or if you're hearing kind of any concerns from your constituents or anyone. What are your concerns about how Alberta will be perceived by other Canadians, I guess? Oh,
as concerns this Alberta pension plan scheme?
Yeah.
Okay. What I hear from my constituents every day is that they are worried about their retirement security, and they do not want to hand their lifetime of foregone income that they worked for their entire lives over to Danielle Smith to gamble with. That is my concern. It is my job to represent folks in Lethbridge West and to reflect the vast majority of public opinion in Alberta as concerns their retirement security. Now, there is no question that this scheme undermines business confidence in Alberta and undermines all Canadians' ability to move here or retire elsewhere. But the number one concern for any member of the NDP caucus, me included, is to reflect the concerns and the priorities of our constituents.
All right, any follow-up?
Awesome. Thank you. No, that's good.
Open it up to any other questions on Zoom. All right, if that's it, that concludes our press conference. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.